All right, guys, welcome back to BTC conference. If you're liking our connection, check out Cloaked Wireless. Absolutely awesome, clear connections for when you're doing these kind of venues. Anyways, joining us today, or I shouldn't say today, but right now, we've got Jeff from Spiral, who is going to be talking to us about Bolt 12, and we've got Arik also from Spiral, but I don't know if he's going to be talking to us about Bolt 12. We're not 100% sure, but either way, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Joining me on the Pleb Underground. But let's dive right into it because I know very little about Bolt 12. Maybe we could start off with just something simple, like for the viewers, what would I guess what would they be using Bolt 12 for, and how do we see this as an improvement?
Yeah, so my talk today will be about how to make Bitcoin digital cash using Bolt 12. So even though we're in a conference about scripting, this is more about Lightning, so it's a little off topic for a lot of people attending today. But Bolt 12 is basically an improvement over the Bolt 11 process of Lightning payments, where in Bolt 11, you're given an invoice and it's not reusable. So there's no sort of reusable payment code, if you will. No address like on chain that, you don't want to reuse those, I suppose. But there's in Bolt 12, though, on the other hand, we have a way to just request an invoice. And while we have that with LNURL, you sort of lose some of the properties of on-chain Bitcoin as far as with privacy, decentralization, censorship resistance, etc. So that's why we're looking kind of forward to getting Bolt 12 out there.
So recently on Twitter, we saw a post. Sorry, I don't remember the account, but something about using Bolt 12 to pay miners out.
Oh yeah, so I think
can you speak to
Ocean is looking into that.
Yes.
Is my understanding. Vincenzo from Ocean has been using he has his own implementation of I guess his own Lightning node built on top of LDK, which is the project that Arik and I work on. LDK is the Lightning Development Kit, and that allows him to sort of leverage the fact that Bolt 12 is already there, and that he could use that for some of this work he's doing to try to do mining payouts with that. So with Bolt 12, what you get is I guess proof of payer. So you could like if a miner is getting paid by the pool, for instance. If the miner is getting paid by the pool, the miner is essentially giving the pool an offer, which is this payment code, right? And the pool will request an invoice from the miner, and the miner would send an invoice back to it would send an invoice back to the pool, who would then pay out, right?
Okay.
And because the pool requests the invoice and it contains basically like a node ID of theirs, a pub key, they sort of have, I guess, they could prove that they're the one that paid. They're not that they paid something, but they themselves have paid, which is not part of Bolt 11.
Okay, so let me ask you that, and maybe this might just be a stupid question, but is this one of those situations where you can actually have, because I find it difficult to just send somebody sats through Lightning, right, without them generating an invoice for you to pay first?
Yeah.
So is that, does Bolt 12 enable that?
So this will help address that. So with Bolt 12, the precursor to this invoice, this payment code, is called an offer. And an offer doesn't need to have an amount in it. So you can give this like fairly long-lived sort of payment code, which is an offer with no amount in it. And anyone that wants to pay you could request an invoice from you, and they could specify the amount that they want in there. And then you would then respond with the invoice with the amount that they want to pay. So that kind of helps with that problem.
Yeah, would you like to contrast the experience of requesting an offer using Bolt 12 with KeySend that is already available on Lightning?
Oh, do you want me to?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to be able to answer.
So with KeySend, the way that works is you have essentially a node ID, and so in order for you to send a payment to someone, you need to know where to send it to. And so having this node ID means that you're sort of like, you're announced, right? You're a public node. You're announced on the network. Shinobi's trying to fool us here.
We're not trying to flip the bird to the crowd. Shinobi's back there doing funny stuff. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Yeah. So with KeySend, the person who sends they're essentially invoiceless, right? In that manner, like someone could send you a payment to your Node ID, and they send you the pre-image sort of encrypted in this payment, and thus such you can claim the payment that way. But
Okay.
they lose all this proof of payment mechanism that's in Bolt 11. And Eric, maybe you could expand on that if I got any details I missed. But
Yeah, I think the interesting part to expand on is probably the privacy benefits that we get from Bolt 12. And those are primarily enabled by onion messages, which is this new concept that allows sending arbitrary messages, not just specific payment-specific messages across the Lightning Network. And I think they are pretty much the foundation that Bolt 12 rests upon.
yeah, so onion messages are
similar
similar to onion payments in the sense
Yeah.
that like you can send these like encrypted payments across hops of the network, where you only know like the next person you're going to, right? And
Okay.
and an onion message is the same thing, but instead of a payment, it's a message. So when I'm requesting an invoice, I'm using onion messages to sort of encrypt the fact that I'm sending a message requesting invoice. And I'm doing the same thing on the way back, or the recipient of that message is doing the same thing on the way back. They're sending back a message that will contain the invoice. Now, the privacy part comes in because you're not sending it directly to someone's Node ID, but to something called a blinded path.
Okay.
And a blinded path is like essentially the end of the path that you're sending this message or this payment on.
So you don't see the path, but you see the destination?
You see basically a few hops away from the destination.
Okay.
So you could send to that portion, and the rest is like, so for instance, in an offer, it would contain these blinded paths, such that when I request an invoice, I use that blinded path instead of using your Node ID. The Node ID would not be in the offer.
Very interesting.
I think an interesting way to describe it is right now, a Lightning node has a view of the entire graph of nodes in the Lightning Network. They know which nodes are there, and they know which channels connect the nodes.
Yeah.
Which is basically a channel is essentially a pair of two Lightning nodes. And so if you have something that essentially amounts to an adjacency matrix, you can calculate a path. Now, it is usually the responsibility of the sender to construct a path, because they have the graph and they are able to do this nesting according to the Sphinx protocol that wraps each subsequent segment of the path in a way where only the immediate neighbors will know how to unwrap it and how to forward it. So that is what allows for the privacy. However, if a pair is responsible for constructing the entirety of the path, that inevitably also implies that they would know where the path ultimately ends. So what a blinded path is it's a component of the path that is already static. It is pre-computed. So the pair cannot really mess around with that portion of it. And what the pair does is they are able to dynamically calculate a path towards the beginning of the blinded tail, towards the entry point. And then after that, it is fixed. So there the pair cannot mess around with it, and it is immutable to them. However, it is also hidden from the pair, because after that, once you have reached the entry point of the blinded path, from there onwards, that entry point node will then know how to navigate and how to route the payment onwards in a way that would remain hidden to the original pair.
Okay, that's very cool. I feel like you guys are doing a good balance there with essentially performance and privacy.
Yeah. And
so,
by not revealing your Node ID, you're also removing this correlation of payments, right? Like, so if you're always, if someone's observing the network, they can tell like, what payments are going to you or what payments you're sending.
So let me ask you, I mean, this is going to be outside of the protocol, but I'm just thinking like, with the announcement from Coinbase for, that they're going to be enabling Lightning through Clear.
I think LightSpark.
LightSpark, thank you. I always call them ClearSpark. I don't know why. It makes me think like, do you see that companies like Coinbase would be implementing this type of thing, or do you see that?
So is implementing Bolt 12?
Yeah, specifically like Bolt 12, because it seems that if you have this situation with the blinded, with partially blinded paths, I feel like that introduces a layer of privacy that Coinbase, I'm saying, may not be comfortable with, because they are a publicly traded company, and anyways, that's just my thought. I'm always going back to the tinfoil hat take. Steve, is there?
Yeah. I mean,
You think there's
are
anything
some
there,
companies-
or?
like there are companies that have to, follow the travel rule. I think is the they're the not, sorry.
Sorry.
So they have to like do some due diligence, I guess. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah. No, I know. I was just thinking about it, right?
But
Like,
there are mechanisms with Onion messages where you could sort of attach data to it, and so they could potentially use that. And
They-
there are some proposals out there for
Okay.
that. So
so if they wanted to implement something like this, they could make certain changes in order to fit
it's
their.
allow some privacy
their
because
their
they in
guidelines.
the end they are custodial, right? They know
Yes,
their
exactly.
users.
And you know that they're never going to be able to fight those pieces off, you know?
Mhm.
I actually did have another question for you guys about the I think it had to do with, okay, so all right, we've got the idea of what the positive aspects of it are. Bolt 12, I'm saying. Have you guys done any kind of like sleuthing around as to like what could be the negative impacts of implementing this type of stuff?
Yeah.
You know?
So I mean, one, there's an onboarding problem, right? So like
Mhm.
this is just another new protocol for payments, and getting adoption is going to be a challenge. So um, that would be, I wouldn't say it's a negative aspect necessarily, but it's like a hurdle that we need to sort of go through.
Mhm.
And there's ways with like this like human readable uh, I think called like human real names over DNS essentially is a proposal that's out there that is hopefully help to solve this. Onion messages themselves, they're inherently unreliable. They're different from Onion payments in the sense that you're not locking up liquidity, and thus like there's not a gating factor of like how many you could send, right? So the like flooding the network of Onion messages could potentially be a problem. There are ideas of how to mitigate that. I think we're kind of a ways away from needing to be concerned about that because it's pretty
Yeah.
early on. But like different mechanisms like back pressure, for instance, would help with that. So, do you have anything else
Interesting
to
stuff.
contribute to that?
Yeah, well, in terms of flooding, there are already certain types of briefing attacks on Lightning, and those apply even when sending payments. For example, you are able to lock up liquidity for an indefinite amount of time. You're also able to send payments to HDLCs and then immediately cancel them, and just and so doing, keep attacking certain channels along the path. And there is a lot of research that is being conducted in that regard, with some of which I think involves paying a fee in the failure case. Other research involves having some sort of reputation mechanism to prevent this long-term HTLC lockup issue, where you would just see, how good is reputation of the sender, and is it likely that this is just an attack, or will it likely result in the end? But yeah, given that those issues already apply to payments, of course, with Onion messages, it is going to be much more difficult should that become an issue to figure that out. But it just isn't yet. So I don't think it really makes sense to worry about eventuality before you actually get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think one of the last things it's another thing that's just a challenge is that and this is actually a problem not just with Bolt 12, but for mobile nodes, mobile wallets, like being able to receive when you're offline is historically been a problem. And so there's an extension to the Bolt 12 protocol called asynchronous payments, which is hoping to solve that. So if anyone's interested, do a little search and you'll find some information about that.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, guys, I really appreciate you joining us for the live stream here on Pleb Underground at BTC++. So anyways, we are going to head back to the main stage. You guys go check out the main stage. Jeff, Arik, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Take it easy, guys.